Hello everyone, Mins Joseph here from sunny San Diego, and I'm excited to welcome you all to 3FX Trifecta, where you can find knowledge, innovation, and inspiration within the scientific and medical world. As we launch our very first episode, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest for today. Born and raised as a proud Kiwi, and not the bird or fuzzy fruit, but a rugby-loving New Zealander, we have the passionate and innovative serial entrepreneur in the healthcare communications industry, Neil Matheson. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Mins. How are you?
Great. Thank you again for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you on. As you know, this is our pilot episode, and Jody was excited to have you on as our very first guest. So thank you so much.
It's a great pleasure. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Well, let's get into our questions for today. The first one here. So we know that you're originally from the land of the long white clouds. Can you tell us more about your life there and how your journey brought you here in San Diego?
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up as any other New Zealand kid does, wanting to be in the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team, and, playing rugby at an early age. But also, New Zealand's a country with, a huge coastline. So spending the summers at the beach and being a real outdoors sort of world, we spend a lot of time fishing and, hiking and doing things outside. So spend all of my childhood years really at one with nature, if you like, and also in a sporting family and sporting environment. I went to the University of Otago, which is one of the main medical school universities in New Zealand, and wanted to go to medical school, but it's a very tough competition to get into medical school in New Zealand. There were 890 kids trying to get in my year, and only 80 of them made it. So I did a degree in physical education, focusing on exercise physiology, and then out of university taught phys ed in a boys high school for a couple of years. I joined the pharmaceutical industry as a sales rep with a company called Ciba-Geigy, which is now part of Novartis. So when I joined Ciba-Geigy, Ciba and Geigy were two separate companies that had just merged to become Ciba-Geigy, and now, of course, they're part of Novartis. And they had just launched a drug called Voltaren, which was a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. And my rugby background and my interest in sports and my phys ed background with exercise physiology and sports injuries and so on was perfect to be a rep. I then left after a couple of years of working in the pharma side. I left to join a device company, New Zealand's largest importer of medical devices and hospital supplies. And while I was there, I started a pharmaceutical division, and I needed to register some drugs with the New Zealand government. So I went to a company called ADIS. ADIS was a New Zealand-based medical publishing company that had a lot of pharmacists on staff and a lot of medical writers. And they helped me put together the registration dossiers for these drugs. And while I was doing that project with them, a friend of mine who worked there said he was leaving and I should apply for a job with them, which I did. And I became the New Zealand manager for ADIS, managing all of the New Zealand operations. A couple of years later, I became the executive vice president for Southeast Asia and worked in Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, the Philippines. And then in 1989, they sent me to the States to run the US business here, which was on the East Coast in just outside of Philadelphia. I was only supposed to be here for a couple of years, but 5 years in, when they decided to sell the company, they wanted me to go back to New Zealand, and I started my own business here, wanted to stay here in the States. My kids were in school and they loved it. And so I started a company called Oxford Clinical Communications. I built that over a 5-year period to about $35 million, and then started all over again with a new agency called Apothecom, which became part of Access Healthcare. Mm-hmm. And then Access Healthcare was sold to Huntsworth in 2007. Huntsworth was a publicly traded company in the UK. 2009, I became the global CEO of Huntsworth. health, and I built that business from 50 million to 185 million over the 7 years that I was the CEO there. So 2017, I left Huntsworth and started to consult with a few companies. And during the course of some of the work I've been doing, a client asked me if we could create a mechanism of action video, and I contacted 3FX to help me to do that, and we had a very successful project. And so there you go. That's the history.
What got you into the healthcare industry, and how did your passions lead you into these different ventures? What inspired you?
Well, I think there are three aspects to that, and a lot of people ask me that. Why is a phys ed teacher, doing what you're doing? It's funny. My view is you go to university to learn the discipline of working and to expand your mind into learning how to think things through, and you don't necessarily always go to university to learn what you're going to do for a career, but it is an interesting pathway. The three things I think is, as a young person growing up, I had a real passion for drawing and art and painting, and I often thought about a career in advertising. And in fact, if I had not gone to medical school, that probably would have been where I pursued my interests. But I also had a passion for biology and human biology, and that's why I wanted to go to medical school. I felt I would have been a great doctor. I was a good people person. I felt I could do a lot of good by being a doctor. And so when that didn't happen, it was interesting that for a few years, I followed the science side of things. But if you think about it, the industry we're in, this whole healthcare communications business, is really about understanding science and how to creatively present it and how to creatively communicate the science. And really what we do is to come up with really interesting ways to help people understand complex things. And the work that we've done together is really that. We've taken a really complex way in which a drug works, and we've been able to put it into really high quality and really exciting, engaging pictures. And it's so educational, right? The old story that a picture says 1,000 words is really well illustrated by being able to put together a mechanism of action video like we've done together. But really, the way I got into this business was really following what made me passionate, and the creativity side of the business and the human anatomy, biology, physiology, pharmacology side of the business tied together has meant that for the last 35 years, I've just been in a business that I've really loved. I mean, it's just the ideal mix of everything that makes me get up in the morning and want to go do more, And I think the entrepreneurial thing is something that is just bred in you. I mean, maybe it's the fact that I'm a very competitive person. I love playing sports because I love the idea of trying to do better every time and achieve something great. I hate losing, which is the other component of being competitive, I guess. But I also like building things and creating things. And I think, when you look at the entrepreneurial side of what I've done, it's been about building things and surrounding myself with really interesting and great talented people who've been able to actually do the building, with me being able to encourage, mentor, and provide an environment to do that. So it's just been a very fun 35 plus years, as I said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's one thing coming up with the ideas. It's another thing executing it and just having the right mindset to follow through. Because, everyone wants to be a businessman and, do their own thing, but you really need to have that right setting to get it done.
Yeah, I think my background playing team sports, people often talk about, the value of playing team sports and what it brings. But I think what team sports really does for you is it teaches you a couple of things that are very important in business, I think. One is it's up to you, right? You're the one that's got to perform. You've got to find it in yourself to achieve whatever you're going to achieve. So there's a high level of self-motivation involved. Second thing is in order to win anything, you have to have a game plan, and you have to be able to execute that game plan. And then thirdly, in order to do all of those things really well, you need to have some sort of quest for excellence. You need to want to improve every time you do something. And so when you put that together, that really does create the right formula for a successful business. You have to have the courage to get started. You have to have the confidence to know you're going to be successful. And then you have to have the ability to get up every morning and go and do a good day's work. And when you put all that together, and have fun doing it, it can be very successful.
Yeah, very well put. You're exactly right. Well, I mean, obviously you've been such a successful serial entrepreneur. What are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a very, very interesting question. It's something I've thought of a lot. I'm very proud that I, first and foremost, have given so many people an opportunity to find what they can achieve for themselves. I've always felt that if you can create the right dance floor, people will dance. If you can create the right, platform for someone to perform, they'll get them up and perform. And it's really about providing an environment where people feel that they can find what's inside themselves. And the sports analogy comes back, right?
Right.
It's the coach on a rugby team is about helping all of those players find what's in themselves to perform. And I think it's the same. I found that the same. I love seeing people grow and develop. I've seen some amazing people, just achieve such great things and go on beyond working with me to great things elsewhere. And I feel very proud that those people got a start, in a company that I may have been managing, and that they were able to be part of something for a while until they were able to move to something bigger and better. The other thing I think I'm very, very proud of is I've always balanced work and life and being a husband and a parent. And I think it's a very hard thing to do in today's world. There are so many competing pressures and so on. And
right.
To be able to put in the effort that's required to build a business, but also to make sure that you're at your son's football game, or you're at your daughter's field hockey game, or you're at the parent-teacher night, or you're wherever you are, or you're on a vacation, then I think these things are really critical. And I'm very proud of the fact that, I never put business before and work before all the other things that were important to me in my life, and being able to achieve that work-life balance very, very well, whilst also being, incredibly successful.
Yeah, that's amazing, being able to juggle everything. So not only are you a serial entrepreneur, businessman, mentor, you're also a family man.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Well, I actually saw a post on LinkedIn that you've recently shared. Is your son a police officer?
Yes, it's a really interesting story. My son followed in my footsteps and was a phys ed teacher in New Jersey for 16 years. But he was also a triathlete, and he went out to Arizona to compete in the Arizona Ironman and fell in love with Arizona and thought it would be a great place to train for his triathlons, and decided that he would leave teaching. And he moved to Gilbert, which is a suburb of Phoenix, and decided to go into the police academy at the age of 42 years. And so he's only recently become a police officer in the last 2 years, and he's spent his life being a community-minded individual. He was a paramedic, he was an EMT, he was a fire chief in a town back east in a volunteer fire department, and now he's a police officer. So I think he's seen all three aspects of community service, and and he picked a really interesting time to become a police officer, right at that time when the political environment turned to questioning the role of policemen, police officers, and our police force, and so it's been interesting. he's told me quite a lot of things about what's going on at the moment. And of course, being in Arizona, the biggest issue for them is the massive amount of illegal fentanyl that's crossing the border and coming into Arizona. And just as an interesting aside, he is probably called to 3 or 4 fentanyl overdoses a week, which is, amazing when you think about it. So, we often think about our police officers as, traffic stoppers, stopping you for a traffic offense, or looking out for a robbery or a burglary or something. But actually, they're dealing with a lot of other issues, including the effects of illegal drugs and so on.
Right. Well, prayers to him, and I hope he stays safe.
Thank you. Yes, no, he's thoroughly enjoying it, and he's got a lot of compassion. I think he'll be a very good police officer and someone with a lot of empathy and humanity. So,
Of course. That's awesome. All right. On to our next question. From your experience, what future trends do you see in the biopharmaceutical communications and marketing?
Well, I think it's been an amazing period of time where we've moved from, around 2005, 2006, 2007, where we saw the convergence of the digital technology and the online capability merging with the empowerment of patients. So we saw this massive consumer involvement in healthcare come about by online access to information. And then, that's driven a very, very strong consumer interest in taking responsibility for decisions in their health, making sure they understand, how drugs work and what drugs they're taking and what the side effects are. And coupled with that, the digital world has continued to evolve, and we've just seen it during the COVID-19 pandemic, where without virtual doctor interaction or nurse interaction, we probably would have had a very difficult time continuing to deliver healthcare. So technology is certainly here to stay. The digital world has overwhelmed communications. Everything we do is driven by digital channels and more social channels. And I think this is going to continue. I think the human interaction side of things, unfortunately, is going to diminish. I think we're going to see healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, physicians' assistants, having less time to interact with sales reps from the industry, which is unfortunate because we're heading into a time where the drugs are becoming more complicated and more complex. The equipment and devices and technology as it's applied to more practical aspects of medicine are becoming even more technologically difficult. So I think the industry interaction has to continue, but I think the industry is going to find really innovative digital ways to interact and create engaging pieces of educational material and teaching material and technological support material. And I think the role of short video, the role of digital interaction, virtual interaction, webinars and online types of educational events are going to be the thing of the future. And of course, they already are a massive part of what we do. So, I really do see the communications world moving from a print advertising promotional world into a very much a digital engagement world. Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say that. But I do see that trend, and even our clients, our recent clients, they're looking for something to gain that engagement and fill that gap in communication.
Yeah, and I think the trick is that we're in a TikTok world, right? We're in a 30-second soundbite world. We're in a world where if you're going to engage someone, you better grab their attention quickly, right, and you better get your point across, and you better make it really interesting and exciting, because otherwise, it's not going to work. And so I think everything we do in the future has to be, has to be well thought out in terms of how are we going to engage? How are we going to communicate effectively? How are we going to do that in a very short, sharp period of time with something exciting, educational, or valuable to the listener or the person we're engaging with, and get our point across quickly? And I think that's going to be a challenge in some cases, because the pharmaceutical industry is notoriously being very long-winded in the way it communicates, and so breaking it down into bite-sized pieces is sometimes difficult. But it comes back to what I was saying earlier on in our conversation, which is being able to take complex things and communicate them and to communicate to simplify and communicate in a more simplistic way, I think is the key. And I think we're going to see that skill coming to the fore in the future.
Right. Yeah, we're working on just making that 1 minute of animation just the most engaging thing, right?
Exactly. I mean, to case in point, the video we've created together, I think it was 90 seconds. And that 90 seconds, we were able to articulate not only the way in which the drug is able to work, but the benefits of that new mechanism. And so, yeah, you can communicate and teach a lot in 90 seconds. And I think that's the power of the future is getting the point across, as I said, quickly and easily, but in an engaging way. And there's nothing more engaging than a highly graphical, three-dimensionally created, engaging piece of video. And I think you guys have got a big future ahead, because I think you're going to be called on to help a lot of people do exactly that.
We're hoping so, Neil. Thank you so much. All right, so our last question for today, it's probably a little random, but we did our research. Can you tell me about Kiwi Cuisine?
Yeah, sure. So Kiwi Cuisine is a very interesting company. Kiwi Cuisine makes authentic New Zealand meat pies. And the meat pie is something that in New Zealand and in Australia to a lesser extent is a fairly sort of staple food for us. It's a round. I'm going to hold my hands up. It's about this round, and it's pastry that is filled with steak or other savory type food, and then there's a pastry top put on it, and it's baked in the oven. And so when we were at school and we were allowed to buy our lunch, once a week, it was a great treat to be able to buy your lunch at school. And we would buy a meat pie for lunch, and it was like 15 cents back when I went to school. Go to Whole Foods now and it's like $8. But it's a snack food that you can have, or you can have it as a meal. You can also have it with mashed potato and peas or some sort of green vegetable. So it can be a meal and or a snack, and it's something that's been part of New Zealand's culture for a long time. And so a friend of mine who came to the United States to play rugby here and lives in Washington, D.C., started the company and asked me if I'd be a partner in the business. And so together we've been making meat pies for the last 15 odd years. Our biggest customer is Whole Foods. So the pies are sold through Whole Foods. And we have other customers as well, including a number of brew pubs, some coffee shops, and different places that like to have something different to offer their customers. And on October 23rd, when the New Zealand All Blacks play the USA Eagles at rugby in Washington, D.C., the stadium will be selling our authentic New Zealand meat pies to everybody that goes to the game. So, it's a really interesting business. As a proud New Zealander, I'm very, 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 very privileged to be able to live and work in the United States. I'm married to an American, and my kids are, essentially American, and it's just great to bring a little piece of New Zealand to the US and just to promote New Zealand in some way as a country that we know of as just full of organic, naturally naturally fed lamb and beef, which we use in these pies, and so we use organic grass-fed New Zealand lamb, organic grass-fed New Zealand beef, so it's just a way of telling Americans about what we grew up eating and enjoying and sharing it with them.
That's amazing. No joke, Neil, I'm going to go to Whole Foods and find that and try it out. Is it your own recipe, or did you?
Yeah, so in New Zealand, the pies are made by various companies and sold through various outlets. A lot of gas stations in New Zealand sell the pies, so people fill the car with gas and buy a meat pie, But it's I guess it's sort of similar to buying a hot dog in a gas station here. I don't know, but the recipes are fairly standard. The recipes that we use have been created by Ram, my partner. His real name is Bert Todd, but we call him Ram. That's his nickname. And he has a real skill for creating a very tasty meat pie. So, there are recipes, but they're fairly standard. They're very authentic. New Zealanders who eat the pies say, they're just like the ones back home. So they are authentic.
Awesome. That's amazing. We'll send our regards to Ram. I'll be excited to try it out.
Very good. Yeah, I'll make sure you get some.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's just about time to wind down our pilot episode, Neil. And thank you so much for carving some time out for 3FX. You really are inspiration. We couldn't have asked for a better guest to kickstart our 3FX Trifecta series. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mins. And just let me say in closing that my experience in working with 3FX was amazing. Everybody there is so talented, and they're so willing to make sure that the client's needs are met. And I think that's really important in our business. You've got to put the client first. And it was just a great pleasure to see the eyes of our client light up when they saw that final version of the mechanism of action video we created. And it's been a core component of their virtual exhibit at congresses and also on their actual physical exhibit, and it will continue to be a core part of what they do at congresses from that angle, as well as in other educational activities. And it is a core component of their website. So, it's been a great project. The team at 3FX were awesome, and looking forward to doing some more projects with you guys soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Neil. We'll look forward to growing our relationship with you in the future. And thank you again for everything.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.
All right. Take care.